going to be sharing with you about einkorn flour and how I'm going to make empanadillas with einkorn flour instead of regular flour. Now, first, I'm going to talk a little bit about einkorn flour and what I have found out in my research. And what I have found out in my research is that this is a product that can be used by some people who are gluten sensitive without causing the issues that they might normally experience by eating gluten. It is not a product that is recommended for people with celiac disease though, because it still does have gluten in it. However, this gluten that is in this einkorn flour is a different molecule. It's a different type of protein, and it's a smaller sized protein than the gluten in modern wheat. So einkorn is an ancient grain. It has been around since the first people began cultivating wheat, and it has remained genetically unchanged. So it's much different in its genetic structure than modern wheat. It has a much smaller amount of chromosomes. The actual vitamin content is different than modern wheat, and some sources I've read say that it has much more variance in the vitamins and minerals that it has contained in it, and they're more abundant. So that is a claim that I'm not 100% sure. I'm not going to speak like an expert on this grain, but I do want to try it out because of my gluten sensitivity issue. Myself and my daughter, we both have gluten sensitivity, and when I personally eat gluten, I have a severe pain in my hands and feet, my joints, and this is caused by an arthritis or an inflammation that just happens when I eat wheat. And I found out that I had this problem because after I had given birth to my daughter, my youngest daughter, I had severe pain in my hands and feet, and I couldn't find out what was going on. So this lasted for months upon months. My hands, my grip was weak. I couldn't lift things the way I used to, not because of muscular strength, but just like I could feel that my actual grip was I couldn't just do it. Something was not right. And I did see a few doctors about it, and it did take some time before I was able to see an allergist, and I had x-rays done. And so I came to the conclusion with my doctors that staying away from gluten and potentially even finding if there was any other triggers to the flare-ups of the pain in arthritis in my hands and feet. So I no longer eat wheat products, or try not to, because it will immediately, I'll start to feel, shortly after, the pain return, especially in my hands, which is where it actually bothers me the most, because I can't write, I can't type, I can't, pick up my baby when my hands are in pain. So try really hard to stay away from that. But, anybody who is on a restricted diet knows how difficult it can be to, especially if you were, developing or you didn't know you had this problem, and then you find out and you have to stop eating things that you once enjoyed regularly. So for me and my daughter, we both love empanadillas, and we were very, 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 very sad when we had to stop eating them. So now that I found this flour, this product, I really wanted to try it. So a few things that I've learned, you do have to use the recipes a bit different. You can't just substitute the einkorn flour the same way that you would for wheat flour. Now, and the only tip that I found that applies today is that we're going to use less water than we would if we were working with modern regular wheat. and I'm going to use half as much water that the recipe originally called for. Other than that, the tips have to do with when you're using yeast, which maybe we'll get into if I make some bread with it, which I will try, but in a different video. So, as I said, I modified the recipe. I'm going to show that below and when I show how I made it. And then I'm also going to talk about the results. So, spoiler, I'm filming this after I've made and ate the empanadillas, and the results were, yes, I did not have an allergic reaction. I did not have any pain or inflammation in my hands or feet, and my daughter as well, she felt fine after we ate the einkorn flour. So I'm going to continue to test it out though. I do want to make sure before I incorporate it into our diet on a daily basis that there is not going to be any effects that maybe, you know, subtle effects that we haven't noticed. So I'll be updating to say, you know, maybe in a few weeks or after we've been incorporating it to our diet, have we changed our minds? Is there any negative effects? Also like to hear from anybody who happens on this video. If you're watching and you have gluten sensitivity, if you've tried this, and what were your results? So anyways, now we're going to get to the recipe and how to make the empanadillas. And also like to say that you can actually use regular wheat and make these and follow the same directions. You're just going to use the original recipe, and or you are just going to buy the discs at the store, which is what I buy for my other children, my husband, because they don't eat gluten-free. And that way I save money because this flour, this einkorn flour, is extremely expensive. Oh my goodness. But spoiler alert, it's worth it. These empanadillas are so good and the dough is so flaky and delicious. You're gonna love these amazing empanadillas if you make them. And if you're not allergic to gluten and you make them with einkorn flour, you're still gonna get all of those health benefits of the increased vitamin content of the flour. So if you're looking for it for that reason, you can also try it, and you're probably gonna like the results because they were very, very good. Okay, so here are the things that we're gonna be using today. I'm gonna use a food processor. This is 3 tablespoons of warm water, 1 egg. This is 4 tablespoons of butter, so it's half a stick, a normal size stick. Some salt and our einkorn flour. So I'm going to take 2 cups of this for the amount that we're using. And as for the salt, this is the first step that we're going to do, is actually we're going to take the teaspoon of salt and we're going to dissolve it into the warm water. And it's important because that gives you just an even amount of salt throughout the whole dough. And you can stir that a little bit until it dissolves. And we'll come back to this as well. So just give it a few minutes, and you don't have to stir too hard probably. I'm going to basically, I'm going to put the flour and the butter. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cube this butter. So I'm going to basically take a knife and I'm just going to cut it into cubes. So like this. And I'm just going to place these into the food processor. Okay. And Then I'm going to measure out my flour. All right, so I'm using 2 cups of this Einkorn wheat flour. And you are supposed to shift it, but I'm gonna take that shortcut because I don't really have a sifter and I don't feel like doing that. So, here we go. Try to measure it pretty accurately just because I really want to see how this comes out with the exact measurements because of the fact that it's a new recipe and we're using this different product. It's not exactly like regular wheat. Okay, so now that I have the butter and the flour in here, I'm going to put it in here and I'm gonna basically pulse it until it's crumbly. I crave your silhouette more than a little bit. Let's see what's going on in here. I mean, is anything happening? I don't. So, okay, well, it's all in there. It's all incorporated with the butter now. Okay, so let's do next. So next we are going to add the egg. And pulsate it in just until it's what we're going to do is that up just a smidge so it didn't fully dissolve, and we're going to just add this gradually. It's starting to form a dough. I think we look at it. It is a little dry, but I know you just don't want to have too much water. It does still feel workable. So we're gonna get this out and turn it into a ball. So you're just going to form a ball, and it's pretty easy to just incorporate any crumbs that were left in the bowl or fall down once you start forming it. After we make the ball, we're going to put cling wrap around it and just put it in the fridge for about 30 minutes. While that's in the fridge, I'm going to start the meat. I am just having regular ground beef, and I just use my spatula to break up the pieces. You want them to be really small. You don't want any big chunks because it impacts the texture in your mouth. It tastes just so much better when they're all very, very small. Okay, now the meat's done cooking. I'm going to start putting my seasonings. This is the first one. I have sazon, and I use the one that says con culantro. And here's, I think, I put it like this time, but actually is a little bit better if you put all the spices and ingredients that you add to the meat together to the side. So let me just show you what I mean in a minute. Okay, so I made a space on the pot, and then I'm gonna put down my sofrito. And that's because once you cook these herbs, you release a little bit of the aroma that really adds to the flavor. So I put about this much. I think this is probably 2 pounds of ground beef, and it made more than enough for 20 empanadillas. You probably could have made a few more. But anyways, I put this here, and now I would recommend you sprinkle all the spices together into the sofrito and the
other things that we're going to add, then incorporate them together. It just really helps to mix it a little better. But anyways, I put this over there. I let it cook a little. I add some adobo. That's just plain regular adobo. I just sprinkle a little bit in. And then I also am going to be adding to this some tomato sauce. Okay, so I'm using this Goya brand salsa, but you can just use regular salsa as well. And I just put in about half the can here. I didn't put enough, but I put more later. Anyways, if you mix this all together with the sazon at the beginning, once you incorporate it with the meat, it just is a little bit easier to mix. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to add a little more of the salsa now. I would think you would put half a can. Just put it at first. I don't know why I didn't. But after this, I'm going to incorporate it, but then there's one last ingredient that you can use, and that's honey. And my brother-in-law taught me this, but if you overdo it, it can make it taste really bad. So you just put a really small amount. I just put a little bit like this. It just gives it a little bit of something extra that is different. It tastes great. So now once we incorporate that, our meat is done, and we're going to move on to the cheese. So I always use either a cheddar cheese or a Jack blend. So like Colby Jack or Monterey Jack. Those are the cheeses I think taste the best. Right now I'm just going to use fresh cheese that I'm grating myself. And I do think that when you grate the cheese yourself, it really does taste better. And also keep in mind, if you're gluten sensitive, that there is sometimes gluten in shredded cheeses, so you have to look out for that. Some of the ingredients that they use to keep the cheese slices fresh could contain wheat. So this is a more safe option if that is something that you find to be in your shredded cheeses. So this is the cheese I put in here. I think this is about half of a pound of cheese, maybe. Now you can put however much you want. You could also put it in each one separately. So if somebody doesn't want cheese or has an allergy to cheese, you can actually just put the cheese in each empanadilla separate and leave it off of theirs. I like to mix it in with the meat because we all like cheese, and I think that when you mix it in with the meat first, it just provides a more consistent flavor when you bite into the empanadilla. So that is what I do. Um, and so you see, I'm mixing it in. And now I'm going to just use about 1 spoonful of this mixture into each empanadilla disc that I've made. So we're just gonna put some flour down and prepare our board. I'm going to be flattening our dough ball and then rolling it out with a rolling pin. And I'm just gonna try to make it the same width that I think it would be if I bought it from the store. Okay, so these are the frozen discs. I'm gonna start defrosting these, and they're not gluten free, just so you know.
I got these out, and I'm looking at the width. I want my width on here to be similar, and I also want my cutouts to be a similar size. So what I found out is that, that's slightly big, so maybe not quite that big. And I do also have this kind of baby bowl, so maybe kind of like cutting around this baby bowl will make a similar size for these. Looking pretty good. So I'm gonna start cutting my dough.
So as you can see, I wound up getting 10. One's kind of small, so maybe 9.5. Uh, and then I just put all the meat down. I'm going to do the einkorn first, and afterward I'll make the other empanadillas so I don't get any wheat product on my einkorn empanadillas. After I put the meat filling down, I'm going to lift them up and pinch them with my fingers, and then I will use the fork and press down on each side to seal it shut. Now I'm just going to pinch them all at the same time, set them down, and then do the fork. Just makes it go a little faster.
Lost in each other's lives, both dancing to the beat, so caught up with, don't realize.
Okay, I forgot to film a video of them frying, but this is how they look when they're finished. And I just use a deep fryer to cook mine in.
What? Huh?
Huh?
You just shook your head.
They're really good.
Okay, so here's our finished product, and eating mine with a salad. You can bring them on a picnic. You can bring them for parties. They are great appetizers. Here's a little closer inside. Look how flaky the crust is. It's just perfect. So, anyways, that is it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.